Welcome to a brand new wave, drowning out the noise that's tame. Liberty whispers through the brave, breaking free from every chain. Nullify the rules they crave, crypto beats that pave the way. Anarchy with minds that's safe, algorithms new dawn today. Out of bounds and out of sight, building futures pure and bright. Escape the grip and win the fight. Welcome into the legacy ride. Beyond control we take a stand, casting off the iron brand. Freedom flowing through our hands, revolution's our command. Decentralize the way we plan, all together we expand. Breaking shackles for the clan, in this journey we're unplanned. Out of bounds and out of sight, building futures pure and bright. Escape the grip and win the fight. Welcome into the legacy ride.
Welcome in. This is Silver Lining 16. I am the legacy of Jennifer Kaiser. Haven't seen that ever, haven't heard that intro in a while. But we're back for another one, and I'm alone. I don't know what happened to Andrew. He disappeared into the void of the darkness. And Greg was with me backstage for a little bit, but he had to skedaddle before we jumped on. So we'll have something for you next week that will hopefully be insightful and a silver lining of the mind. But until then, perhaps we should just get to the show, and I'll try to, you can grade me. How do I do? Let's go. Blockchain of the mind. What does that even mean? What is the blockchain? I think I'm not going to go into that because I'm not the expert there. But what does it mean is the interlinking of your mind to what is reality and what is reality, and how do we get to the complexity of reality that is actually simple in nature? What is reality? And for us, I think we've been dumbed down to that sense of reality because we live in a life today through our generational input output of everything, all schemes aside, to where we have so much abundance that we have comfort and we've lost an edge. So and actually I think we might have somebody joining. So, but where was I? I think the complexity of life is as simple as it can be. And I think it's the basis of acknowledging our creativity, the imagination of our own mind, of our own psychology, of our own philosophy, to discover our own purpose and to find a significant aspect of what it means to be at rest. And though we are comfortable in this reality today because of the abundance, because of what technology has given us, which is great because that we have advanced medical, but yet we have disengaged ourselves from the realities of what those advancements into, say, the medical sciences are, because we're quelling ourselves to stay complacent. And so we don't imagine and we lower ourselves. It's a lower resolution in an era where we need a higher bandwidth. And that's where we've lost our edge, is we've dumbed ourselves down to the comforts, and allowed we've allowed too much influence and not enough collaboration. And so we're constantly in the chase of rest in a in a generation that is restless. We're capable of everything. We've proven that. We're capable of even sustaining things. We're com- we're we're capable of maintaining, but we also are capable, and we show this, of contracting and then compressing what we already have into fragments, into slogans, into shorthand, perceiving that we are being efficient. This is what bringing, what I'm trying to stumble upon, is the aspect of communication. And in our era of technological advancement, in our era of high speed communication apparatus like the internet, social media, the telephone that has become even more well advanced. You don't even have to pick up the phone anymore and talk to somebody. It's just their voice. You can get on camera. It's like Star Trek in reality. But because we've gone so high speed, we've lost the depth and we've dropped in the low resolution. What we call what we can call high bandwidth thought is losing its edge in the low resolution of simplicity, in not allowing ourselves to figure out ways to scale beyond our capacity to hold the complexity that is the simplest form of anything. We no longer hold any layered meaning in the way that we speak, the way that we think, the way that we create. And we're no longer holding to the full weight of the why and the ought. It's just, it is because it is. We have replaced the context of what is beyond ourselves for an exchange of low bandwidth that is designed for immediacy. And so we've lost our creativity. And because we've lost our creativity and we're comfortable, we lost our edge to asking the questions that we are needed to resolve a measurement of what our true purpose in ourselves can be. Rather, we're just measuring what is already there alone and then sticking with it, rather than confronting upon the reflection of the meaning of why we do things. We get lost into an empirical gaze, we grasp at straws, and then we drop down below the higher quality of dimension. We've allowed for, I don't know how to say it, but we've allowed for reason to take over so much that we have dissipated on wisdom. And so we've disoriented ourselves because we don't want to listen to the little voices in our heads, whatever that would be. Could be God, could be your conscience, could be the cosmos talking in the mathematic equations that are within your own mind. But we've made life more about just mere utility. And it is what it is. We got a question. I hope you're on, man. Kron. Actually, yeah, elaborate. Let's actually have a discussion there, buddy. So, how's that for creativity? What do you mean by creativity? What on the basis of elevating ourselves beyond, or I'm actually I kind of want you to expand. I want you to join in on this, man. If you're still there. It's rough, man. It's rough. Allegedly, William says he'll be joining me. I'm gonna hold it to him too. I'm gonna hold it to him. But how do we? I don't know. One thing it is where I think we're less creative within trying to gather an understanding of meaning, of going too full-fledged into reason as a standalone and becoming isolated in a stale aspect of ideology rather than actually trying to grow, is believing that because we're so technologically more advanced, or so we perceive, we have the comforts, we have more technical buttons at our disposal. Yeah, I guess is what I could say. We perceive ourselves as more superior, especially to that of our ancient counterparts. And yes, they didn't have like, oh, I think I'm saved. I'm saved. But
You know what the silver lining is today? My
uh,
silver goatee.
that's the silver lining. The silver lining is William's silver goatee. But what I'm trying to I guess what I'm trying to distinguish is like we've come so far from where the ancients did not have, technologically speaking, that we've lost the edge of what they did have intellectually speaking, in the wisdom of just understanding the depth of the cosmos for which they know, the mysticism that they were able to actually be able to experience because of that philosophical edge. And so like because they were able to get more in depth within their own mind and within the cosmos, and and they could actually escape the distractions that we have because of technology, they had an edge over us. And many of them, like, literally, we're at a age in like the developed world where like literacy rates are declining, educated intelligence is being atrophied dramatically. They had average they were in a time where like the average person didn't know how to read, but they still had some sort of concept and understanding of something. So there's obviously something that's going on with this aspect of high bandwidth to low bandwidth concept of reality.
Yeah. A lot has to say with the simplicity of their life allowed them to have they, like you said, the lack of distraction. You know, at night they didn't have the noise pollution in the ancient world, so the stars were much more brighter. They looked up. They looked up and they tracked the stars. They tracked the movement of the planets, and they found solace and they found meaning, I think, in their daily lives from what they could see at night. Their simplicity in their life also contributed to the ability to almost think like a child and question everything. You know, when children are young, they can be very inquisitive, as well as they can remember a lot of things that we as adults forget quickly because they have a smaller subset of information, so they can recall it quickly, they can remember it. But we get bombarded with so much information, especially in today's world, in the technological age. You know, a lot gets lost, not just in translation, but a lot gets lost in just the whole minutia of everything and trying to parse all the data and parse all the information just in our brains. It's also reason, I think, why we trying to consolidate all of that information into AI and to be able to retrieve it quickly. You just like a child using a calculator and never really learns long division, let's say. So then that part of the brain maybe never develops and atrophies. Well, that could be the same for us. I used to have an argument with a close friend and their family. I don't know why my child has to take algebra. He's struggling in algebra. And I said, well, algebra is a little bit different in that it is creating, and some people it's much harder to understand, but what it's doing is it's actually wiring a part of the brain that when solving for X is actually problem solving in the real world. And if we just give it all to AI or the calculator, then that part of the brain, maybe that's also by design. They want us to.
I think certain powers that be do want to kind of dumb us all down because people have pride. We all have pride. We all struggle with pride. And through that pride unravels the envious for each other, and we want to do better than the other. And then through that comes the greed, which not the greed for money or monetary or even material aspect, but to be superior than the other, when in reality we're the same. We're all the same. We're unique in our own facet, but yet, and so we're all gonna, and one of us, somebody like, you're better than me, especially in articulating this, William. So like you're better than me in one aspect, and then I am better than you in another aspect. So we have different intelligences. So like, I think another aspect of what we've forgotten is we don't languish at the concept of causality and effect. Like we ignore that there is always a cause to an initial cause that it has an effect afterwards. There's always something that's going to occur. And I think we live too much in the moment without living in the moment, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. That's another thing that became very popular and trending was, what was it called? Mindfulness, living in the moment.
Yes.
Just chewing your food and thinking through all of those different tastes and smells that you're experiencing at that moment, rather than looking at your phone to see who posted what and when and what did they say, and just slamming your food down your throat, not even your gullet, not even realizing what you're eating. But the ancients, when they looked to the sky, they also saw wonderment. And when we look to the sky and the stars and and planets
This is
aren't as bright anymore, we don't see that wonderment, and that wonderment
no.
also drives questions.
Well, I mean, it's in. I think last week Sean mentioned this actually, but like, and he was on par with it because historically, like, especially in the medieval days, and especially in the West, but everywhere, like people genuinely slept in two shifts. Like they would sleep, they would go to bed at a reasonable time, say as the sun went down, they'd have their dinner, they'd have it with their family, and then they'd go to bed and they'd sleep from sundown or when it was dark at the darkest, and they'd sleep till like midnight, and then they'd wake up, and then they would actually have a shift in the middle of the night where they would actually have time to think or meditate, contemplate, maybe even study, depending on the class that you were in. And if you were literate, you would have reading time. There would also be moments where they would hold like festive like gatherings in the middle of the night, and they would have a social standard, and then they would do this for like a few hours, which called what we call the witching hour. Like they were up at that time, and then they would go to bed just before the edge of like what would probably be the equivalent to 3 or 4 for us, 2, 3, or 4 in the morning for us, and then they would go to bed for the next 4 or 5 hours, like 3 or 4 hours, to wake up as the sun was coming up, and then they would start their day. So like they would have 2 shifts. They'd have 2 different lifestyles. One was for yeah.
I wasn't aware of that, to be honest. I
Mhm.
hadn't heard that. Sean's such a wise person with all of his life experiences.
Yeah.
He's accumulated a lot of wisdom. And
Yeah.
I like it when he can see things differently than what we can,
Mhm.
and interject his wisdom, literally his wisdom, into our conversations.
Oh yeah. And like part of the 2 shift strategy as well is like one other thing that they would also do is like they'd be in a contemplation of prayer, especially in the Christian world. Europe, North Africa, Middle East, wherever the Christian realm, most people would wake up at that middle of the night peak from their first sleep, and then they would have their little prayer contemplation time. Like it would be their time to just sit in silence, awake without having to do anything. And that's another reason why they would try to they would sleep in some sort of shift, is that to have that conscious mindfulness setting. So because during the day you're working, like you have to
Right.
survive. So yeah.
Well, and dreams too were much more important. And
Mhm.
what were the dreams telling them? I think that was a big, that brings in an element of mysticism, but a lot of times dreams are just unresolved issues in your life that your brain is trying to classify and maybe find closure or something, or subconscious.
Mhm.
And so I think dream interpretation was also, for some, a big part of it. And so if you're breaking up your sleep a couple of times, just before you wake up is a lot of times when you'll remember your dream, or just when you wake up. And I'm sure that was a part of their daily rituals or ways of thinking. And who knows?
Especially for the more mystical, like
Mhm.
religious ideologies, especially like Far East with Zoroastrianism and the Persians,
Right.
yeah, and into pouring over to what is now Afghanistan and the subcontinent of India, in China with their enlightenment stage of ideation when it comes to like dream interpretation, the cosmos, philosophical thought. Like that's how they would articulate everything through their dreams. And so it makes sense that they would want to sleep more in a shift to give them time to process, contemplate, meditate. And like
Right.
Zoroastrianism pretty much kind of died for the most part, not in material in the material realm because of the rise of Islam entering into what is Iran, what is Persia. But the general concept of the essence of it never went away. It was adopted in that realm of the world within their Islamicism, for which, like, where you had what like the Sunnis and the Shias would call heretics.
Right.
Sort of like how in Christendom you had the Arians and the Nestorians, the Gnostics. Islam had the Sufi mystics. They would embrace the concept of Islamic thought and Islamic faith, but then plug it into the mysticism, the astrology, the astronomy, and the wisdom of the old Zoroastrian concepts of ancient Persia.
Hmm.
And that's where we get the Enneagram.
Ah,
Even if we had Andrew on right now, he could go on a tangent.
yeah, no kidding. What is the deal? Boy, it's been a long time since I've read anything about it, but there were actually 13 signs and not 12 signs in the zodiac,
Mm-hmm.
the ancients. And, just like we had a 13-month calendar, and one day was the extra day, 365th day, because each month had 28 days, and 13 times 28 is 364. And one day was dedicated towards the worshiping and towards God, towards deity, which would then essentially be the new year, right? Kind of where the New Year resolution came. But what happened to the 13th zodiac sign? What was it? I don't know. It's something I keep thinking about, and I keep meaning to look it up and find out and learn that history. But yeah,
anybody watching, if anybody's watching, if you know, like, what happened to the 13th zodiac sign, that's fascinating stuff. I mean,
because I know we changed our
link it.
calendar a couple of times, and now we have a 12 months. The months aren't even in the same order. They're not. They've been renamed. Augusta stuff and all that. So the first day of the year is not January 1st. I think it was April 1st. Was the first
it was like most of the old Julian calendar before we went on to the Gregorian in the West. Like, it was like technically the first was matched up in the spring rather than January, in the darkness of what would be winter for most of us here on the Western Hemisphere. So, like, that'd be interesting.
And when the emperor called himself God, and then so on the first day of the year was to celebrate the emperor, not celebrate the god, but it was actually celebrating God, but it was the emperor. I just think that's kind of fascinating. I always think about that. What would the world be if we moved to UT time? So it's the same time around the world, no matter where you're at. And we switched to this type of calendar, 13-month calendar, 28 days each month. I got one day to celebrate life, living. I just thought that would be kind of interesting.
I got an even better observational experiment. What if instead of the UTC time, we just got rid of time in general?
Well,
linear numerical.
What time would I know to when would I know? Forget the word time in the sentence. When would I know to come online and find you and join the live stream?
That would be rough. Like in the internet informational age, we kind of can't, because like we have to have that numerical value. So like, when do we know to join, like meet up with our friends and family, or jump on a podcast that's visually being seen on YouTube? Like, how would we know to do that? But in the essence of like getting away from the internet, I think it would be perfect, because then we could kind of slow down our reality a little bit more and just kind of live in the essence of the moment for how we should live in the moment, rather than living in a moment that is bubbled by many moments measured by a linear aspect of numerical time. But I don't think we could do it with the internet age.
No. Well, who
We'd
knows?
have
That might be sprung upon us if there's a solar CME and wipes out the power grid, and we're thrown
Mhm.
back into the Bronze Age.
Mhm.
we might rethink this. It was watching. If this were to happen, can you create a 13-month year, please? Just kidding.
13 months. Let's make it 16 months just to mess with people.
Yeah. Well, really, I mean, however, we need to find an easily divisible number for
Welcome in.
365.3, a third of a day, whatever, right? Because a leap year.
Mm.
That was a beautiful thing too. Is I think it solved for leap year, didn't it?
I believe so. Like
maybe not. I guess it would.
Yeah.
It's still 365.3 days a
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, well, it wasn't like speaking of leap year. I mean, I feel sorry for Sean Collins, formerly of Buds in Reality.
Oh yeah.
He, realistically speaking, he's like 12.
Oh, because he's born on leap year.
Yeah, he was born on February 29th. So he had no birthday this year. So he's really like 12 years old.
Wow. Man, the family
So-
saved a lot of money over time, not having to buy him gifts, but every 4th year.
Exactly. That's another thing. Like when it comes to time, and this goes into the scope of the blockchain of the mind. I think, like how chaotic that we have become with the drama that we create, because we want to adapt while not being adept. So adaptation without adaptation. And I think, like, wasn't the Julian calendar prior to the Gregorian sword, wasn't it really only like a 10-month year?
I think
I
so.
thought it was short.
I don't
Yeah.
I don't remember. Like I said, it's been something that's been kind of haunting in the back of my mind. I keep thinking about, I need to go back and research that. It's been so long ago that I haven't dug into it and have forgotten a lot of it. That happens when you get old like me.
We're all old.
I'm
we're
evergreen young though.
Yeah, you're younger than me. I'm older. I'm
I don't know
actually
about that. I don't know about that.
I'm actually 206,000 years old. I've seen it all.
Sounds like I'm talking to Mark Fools from If by Whiskey or Knocked Conscious. Switching back to what you were saying earlier before I joined, I was listening to you about the simplicity of life. Something about it, what you're saying made me think of like the Amish way of life. And I started thinking about, let's say, the Amish were to make a chair, and it's all out of wood, it's handmade, it's sturdy. They chose oak because it's a hardwood. It has lasting qualities. It has beauty because it's handcrafted. It has imperfections, which also adds to its beauty. For some people would look at it that way. And and if it's given, let's say, as a wedding gift, it might be passed down through generations. That same chair would be looked upon as something, as a work of art. Now, fast forward to today and the lives that you and I live, and most of us, those that are watching, someone might have looked at that Amish chair and then said, well, you know what, we should mass produce this in plastic and have China or Malaysia or something mass produce this in a mold, and we could probably sell a lot of them. And so that same design of that chair gets mass produced, distributed all over the world, becomes very popular, and it might be even comfortable to sit in. And because it's a hard plastic, it might even last a long time. But if it's given to someone as a gift, it lost a lot of its value or its personalization, because it was a mass-produced plastic chair it probably won't stand up for the test of time. Its color might fade, or its color may not become a trending decor that someone would want in their home. And so it really doesn't pass generation to generation. Whereas that simplistic, handmade piece of art in a hardwood oak chair that was made as a symbol of their love, as like maybe a wedding gift, has much more value because of its simplicity and because it was handmade rather than mass produced. And so when you think about mass production versus someone who hand makes a beautiful gift like that, when you think of mass production, what happens is it kind of cheapens society. And so when we look around us and what we've surrounded ourselves with, cheap plastic chairs and cheap plastic desks and frames and whatever, we've cheapened the aesthetics and the items around us, and probably have cheapened our lives, and it's just like the noise pollution, or excuse me, the light pollution at night. We don't have the stars to look at anymore. We don't even have that handmade chair that's been passed down to generation to generation to sit in and admire and say, our great uncle made that chair and passed it down as a wedding gift. All those things get lost. You literally lost in translation.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of sadness that happens with that. Yet there's the technology that brings us the comfort that more people can sit in a very comfortable chair because it's much cheaper.
I think it comes down what you just described, because I mean that creativeness, say that the Amish guy builds that chair, he has to think about it, he has to design it, it has to come to him, he has to put in work, like true, like blood, sweat, and tears into it, as well as his in the physical, as well as the mental and the emotional, and trying to it comes to give the world, give family, give the community like something to like cherish that actually has some form of meaning. That's a perfect, beautiful example of the structure of our very like universe being that of love. And I think we've actually, like, from looking at that framework, we actually we've cheapened love to a certain extent, because we've reduced it to just a mere static emotion, or even worse, just a biological social bonding. So if rather than like expand it into an epistemological aspect of being the very structure of participation, like participation, whether it's the divine, the cosmos, the universe, physics in general, whatever it may be, like it tells me, like, just from that example, we lose our edge in creativity when we lose our edge in what love really is, which is entirely infinite in the sustaining of reality.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it really does. So the moral of the story is buy cheap plastic chairs and surround yourself with them. Not kidding.
You could.
You could.
Plastic chairs. We have plastic chairs. It's better than the paper straws.
Yes.
So.
Oh my gosh. Oh, now sadly, plastic chairs, because they're made out of petroleum products, are going to become scarcity items because of the Strait of Hormuz is closed now. We won't go there.
I mean, but we could. Well, I mean, actually, let's go there. Let's go there. No, the Straits of Hormuz.
The silver linings, right?
Yeah.
Silver linings.
Yeah.
The strait is open, everybody. The strait is open. Oil flows. It's like what is it from Dune? The spice flows.
The spice flows, yeah. I think there is a silver lining to the Straits of Hormuz. I don't know what else to call it, the chaos division.
Mhm.
Um, is the rest of the world is going to see that the jig is up. Like it's all a facade, and we need to focus more locally. You already see that even China understands that, Russia understands that. That's why, like when Russia was kicked out with the sanctions with SWIFT, pretty much removed out of the SWIFT system. When they invaded Ukraine, they I mean, they're the mother of a lot of precious resources. Natural gas and oil are like the the bread and butter of their land. Like it's abundant. So they turn towards making nice more so and with countries like China and Iran. Actually, I mean, and it opened up a whole new field of a market
Yes.
because they kind of were forced to, and so they were. I mean, did the sanctions with SWIFT hurt? Absolutely, it's still hurting Russia
Mhm.
because of it. But were they able to kind of relinquish some of that hurt by turning towards other means of trade and exchange in their productivity value with their resources? Yes. And it's starting we're starting to see like the world is in it's almost like blockchain. The world is starting to see like there's this centerfold network that is untapped to where it's decentralized
Yeah.
yet central.
Yeah. And not to go too far down this path, but when, how can I put this? When you're sanctioned as a country or as a nation, you have to look within and become creative to solve, supply issues or problems. The beautiful part about Russia's, I should say the beautiful part, the opportunity that Russia has is because it's such a large geographical nation with a vast amount of resources, and a vast amount of even natural resources like water, and of course oil, natural gas, and minerals. It has a lot of ability, and the people are rugged, tough, people because well they've lived in a harsh environment and they've gone through numerous geopolitical issues or problems with different dictators or czars or which is really monarchy, and so that the people have been able to survive through the harshest of winters. And when I say winters, I'm meaning also economic times is like an economic winter. So
Mhm.
they had the ability and the wherewithal to survive sanctions, and it actually allowed them to turn internally and rely more and more on themselves. Well, Iran just did the same thing, over the time that they've had their sanctions imposed upon them.
Mhm.
Uh, so what we can say, I guess what we can kind of learn from that is that's what decentralization is just that. If you it's maybe self-imposed sanctions in the blockchain space by saying, or from an agorist perspective like myself, is I want to start subtracting myself or separating myself from the system and self-impose a a blockade, if you will, where I can start relying on myself. I trust my energy. I trust my individual talents or ability to do whatever, make a chair or earn a living or whatever, rather than suck off the government tit, if you will, uh,
Mhm.
or play a role in that society that help actually subjugates myself, but actually empowers them and emboldens them to impose more upon my rights and become more oppressive. So if I give them less energy and channel that energy to parallel systems, hopefully, inevitably, those parallel systems will grow and grow, become viral, and overtake the parallel, the government parallels. So it really starts at home. It's decentralization is like a self-imposed, blockade, if you will, in some respect, but you're still being able to communicate with other decentralized networks or people. And when a system is corrupt, when a government is corrupt, it seems like that is the natural way to overtake or diminish their role in your life and reduce their corruption by giving them less power, less energy from yourself. Sorry, I'm on a soapbox here this morning. Too much coffee.
Yeah, same. But I mean, it's almost like you can actually kind of see, you can kind of use like COVID as an example for this, because like what COVID did was it split society into like two visible camps. One, the selfish and the miserable, versus those who are more selfless and love. Like, and it split it through trying to utilize a forced inversion of isolation, which is effectively what governments do to other governments, the nations do to other nations when things don't go everybody's way. Like if it's not the status quo, then we're going to isolate you. So
Right.
like Russia, rather than wanting to stay within that isolation, that forced isolation, chose to maintain their self and strengthen themselves to instead of standing alone and just taking it, right? So
Right.
they went and they turned towards China, they turned towards Iran, they turned towards even North Korea or Venezuela or India or anybody that would still do
Allies.
business with them. So
Allies.
and then it creates a budding of alliance. I
Mhm.
mean, so they can sustain. It's almost like, and I heard this recently on wrestling on Raw for all I yeah for all I mean, silly example, but like let's take the bloodline faction of Monday Night Raw, WWE, and like Roman Reigns and the Usos. It's almost like with like the bloodline is basically based on the idea that, I mean, they're all of a shared Samoan heritage in wrestling, and that's their identity. So like one of the things that Roman basically said to them was like, together we're or when we're all divided and not cohesive together, we're basically vulnerable. Like we're more easily to be contained, to be overcome, to be splintered, but together we actually form and unify with each other, we become more cohesively whole. So we're
Right.
stronger more through being together and integrated in our identity and our purpose, even if that
Yeah.
identity is literally just our resources, rather than to be split off to where people can pick us off left and right because we're isolated.
Yeah. That's a good point. Um, since we're having this conversation, it kind of ties into it. And nation states. What are your thoughts on international IP laws, and protection of inventions and patents and copyrights? That is certainly being challenged by AI, and we touched on this a little bit on World Blockchain Roundtable.
Mhm.
My position on intellectual property laws has really changed dramatically over the past few months, and um, um, I guess I could see a silver lining in the future if we actually drop them, um, um, because it gets to a point where they're unenforceable, almost like, say,
Mhm.
marijuana being used in the different states, even though it's still considered a federal offense to possess and use marijuana.
Mhm.
what's your opinion on that? And then I'd like to explain an example of why I think, or a metaphor, why I think that in the future we'd be better without them.
I think like the premise of IP laws
Uh-huh.
makes a lot of sense because I mean we want to protect people from taking advantage of other people's ideas that get out there in the forefront, and like one idea becomes another idea and another idea becomes someone else's idea, like, and then nobody gets any shared credibility because somebody ends up taking it. Like we get this mentality of Thomas Edison where I'm just going to buy it, or yeah, or I'm going to influence it to where it becomes my idea, my invention, and I'm going to consolidate it and monopolize on it, when in reality it was a bunch of different heads, bunch of different people that came up with the concept, and over time one concept got innovated. So I think, yeah, but I think the IP concept is a way to try to figure out a parameter to protect people's ideas for what they once were in becoming inventive, so that people can have credibility on the ideas that flourish beyond the initial idea. The problem is how do you enforce it? And I don't think you actually can enforce it. The only way that we could theoretically find a compromise, not necessarily an enforcement, would be if we like put it on the blockchain. And then that way it's transparent, you know who did it. There's a historical record, but you can advance
Still
off
not
of it.
enforceable. It's just
It's
recorded.
not, it's recorded. That way, like you can enforce it, like that way it's recorded, and then you know who gets the credibility of it. And so when you take their idea and advance it, innovate it, redistribute it to another facet of adaptation, then you have a credibility when that gets recorded on the blockchain, to where they know that you took this original idea, made it into your own for the benefit of our society, that actually is something different that's the same.
Right.
And then we can effectively continue to learn from each other to benefit and better each other. But IP, for what it is now, it's too centrally structured to the point where it's enforced by not being enforced because it's too corporatized. So like how do you enforce something? Why not just cooperate? Record it and cooperate.
Sure. Well, okay, let's look at from two different perspectives. As I try to formulate my thoughts here. Okay, like open source code. It's put out there openly for everyone to look at and review. And if it's like, say, in a blockchain project, people would look at it and say, do I want to invest in this or not? I'm going to look at the code and to make sure that there's no rug pulls or gotcha moments, or that it's not going to fail. It has this bug or that bug. But it's also put out there for everyone to look at, so everyone else can say, hey, guess what? I just found a code, and maybe there's a bug bounty in the code because it's open source. You need to fix this. And so it's improved upon because everyone can look at it. Another group might look at this open source code and say, wow, this is a great idea. I'm going to add to it by adding this additional feature to it. So I'm going to copy their code, and then I'm going to create a new project with their code, but add a new feature, a new enhancement. And it's still going to be open source for everyone to look at that new enhancement code as well. And so when the original is updated, because a new bug is discovered, theirs can also be updated, from the same bug that was created in the second version with a new enhancement. So open source allows for transparency and all the wonderful things that happen with transparency. What it doesn't do is it might cite the original, inventors of the idea and of the code and their work, but may not really reward them except for the utility of the code, what it does, and by paying for someone to use that code, that utility. So open source is really for the betterment of humanity in a sense, right? So that's one perspective. When we don't have it open source, or a key point of it is not open for the public to see and is not transparent, that key component prevents someone else from copying your code, but they can see the rest of it and still improve upon it. But it makes it more difficult for someone to duplicate it because they don't have all the components. It's like trying to build a car and you're missing the tires. You know something goes there, but you don't know that it's a wheel and a tire. You know, and you have no idea what the suspension is because you don't know what it connects to. So that's just as an example of open source, but holding back some of it. Now let's translate this into kingdoms. Let's say that there's numerous kingdoms, they all share a border with each other. And one kingdom, I don't know, the blacksmith invents the anvil. And the first anvil, you know, that's that big heavy thing that they pound on, right? Because before they're pounding on the wood, they kept having to replace the wood would catch fire from the hot metal, et cetera, or on a rock that's not smooth and it's an uneven surface, so they couldn't get to perfection or precision, the flat iron, make this steel sword or whatever. So one person in one kingdom creates the anvil, but that king in that kingdom says all inventions belong to me because I am the king. You wouldn't have a kingdom if it weren't for me. So even your ideas, like the anvil, belong to me, the king. So be grateful you have a king that gave you the free time to create the anvil and whatever. Well, now people want everything that's made from this kingdom because they have an anvil and everyone else is pounding on rocks and uneven surfaces. But the traveler goes to that kingdom and sees the anvil, says, wow, that's a beautiful idea, and takes it back to his kingdom and then recreates a new anvil. And now that kingdom is doing very well as well. And now it's actually competing in product with the first kingdom with the anvil, right? Well, the first king says, hey, no, that was my idea. Well, it really even wasn't the king's idea, but that was my idea, and wants to attack the other kingdom because they're infringing upon their patent, his king's idea of the anvil. So it creates wars, or it creates lawyers, it creates courts, and someone to arbitrate the difference between the two.
I think I prefer war.
Right. And throw in and all the ugliness with laws and attorneys and courts and justice that's not blind and scales are uneven, all of those ugliness that brings about that realm.
Well, you bring up a decent point, and I'll let you.
My last point, real quick, is that what if the anvil was open source, and all the kingdoms could use it, and the anvil was not owned by anyone. That idea was not owned by anyone. Now all the kingdoms would have an anvil, and all the kingdoms would be able to produce a better sword or a better shield or a better teacup or whatever they're making, a bowl, from that anvil. And so it's for the betterment of society. So I'm going to stipulate that. I'm going to, for argument's sake, say that IP laws actually do not help humanity. They impede progress. It's actually an egocentric thing. I want the credit, and I want to get paid by anyone who infringes on my idea. And it becomes a greed and ego, pride. Those are sins, right? Rather than something that's for the betterment of humankind.
Yeah, something. Yeah, like I mean, to your point, like the idea of the IP, all it really does with IP laws is it's created this mechanism where we no longer go to war over things. like directly, but we're still going to war. We've just done it more peaceably through the terms of the law, through the courts and arbitration, and we've created armies, but the armies are of lawyers rather than with weapons. So I guess there's a positive to that structure, but it doesn't benefit anybody but to the beholder of who owns the right. Whereas like an open source style of system, a distributist idea that brings things grounded back to a more locale, it could allow for certain kingdoms or societies, communities, or a network of players like within the coding community, if it's online, right, to be able to use to see a code or see that benefit, see that invention, take it and copy it, and then add the feature that they need to make it better for their benefit, while still appreciating the nature of the original intent. Because like you said, like you could still have something central, like centrally controlled.
There's your word
Yeah.
that fills your argument. You're
Yeah.
using central.
Yeah. So yeah, but you could still centrally acknowledge that the initial invention is the idea of whoever the first beholder was, but you still give the freedom to kind of allow people to take that and re-engineer it.
Right.
And then that way, and then it would bring a lot of more greater peace, because then the focus is more on being a beneficiary.
I disagree
than
that would
being-
bring about more peace. I don't think lawyers bring peace to this world.
Well, yeah, I don't, lawyers don't, but I think, well, if we were adapt it to a blockchain recorder mechanism, we could and then apply it to a DAO, we effectively could get rid of lawyers.
You would hope. It all goes back to
Yeah.
the code and how well it's written.
Yeah.
But that's why,
Yeah.
again, if it's open
It's
source for
right.
everyone to see and to improve upon, there you go. It's for the betterment of humankind. It eliminates another lawyer. That's what that is what AI is essentially doing. It's all the busy work that lawyers are writing, and they're writing briefs and what's the other word? Well, anyway, they're posting their arguments. That's what AI is eliminating, but that particular portion of their job. I like the idea of giving credit where credit is due. I like the idea that someone is rewarded by their IP, because it was their idea. But it does bring up the question: was it their idea? Did the idea, was it just another enhancement upon an enhancement? Is it an enhancement of something from 100 years ago who's had the original idea? And do we now need to pay homage to that estate and whomever that person was? Our ideas really just, stacked on each other. And so therefore they really are something in the mind, in the brain, that can't be owned. It's a thought. And if that's the case, the king is wrong for, creating IPs, laws, and taking us to war with another kingdom because they're not paying their homage, their tax, their royalty payment back to the original kingdom, and therefore it just creates laws and bloodshed or whatever. We always talk about China stealing our intellectual property, and they're thieves, but yet we still buy all their items because they mass produce what our IP are. We're the innovators and they're the mass producers. I think the silver lining, if you will, to go back to your podcast here, is that if we think a little differently, a little bit out of the box, and ideas, let's just say that ideas come from God. And that Jesus, when he was here on the earth, he handed over the anvil and said, "Go, my people, build something with this anvil. I give this to you." Well, it's just like an idea coming from God into your head to create the anvil.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm
then give credit where credit's due. Give it to God.
Mm-hmm.
If God gave you the idea, or if God, Jesus, when he was here on this earth, handed the anvil for everyone to
Could
use,
be edible.
make better, flatter surface, for
Mm-hmm.
a blacksmith or whatever. That's, I guess my point is,
You're bringing up a great point, actually, because it
it's
does.
yeah. I mean, it's can you own an idea that's
Mm-hmm.
put down on paper and then created into physical reality? Can you
Mm-hmm.
really own that? Should it be owned? Was that idea really extremely novel and had no other components that were from long ago, or even just 3 months ago? What if your idea was simultaneous with someone else in, I don't know, Nepal, and the person in Nepal wrote it down, and it's time stamped and recorded, and you wrote it down and it's time stamped and recorded to the millisecond? All right. Well, I'm going to challenge your idea. No, it was my idea. No, it was my idea. Look at my millisecond time date stamp. Well, it's the same as mine. Well, I'm not going to give up half of ownership. It seems like a pointless argument and a pointless fight. It seems like the kingdom versus the other kingdom. One king wants to fight the other kingdom because they can produce anvils cheaper than the other. It just seems like the betterment of humankind. Let's go to that point, and let's go to, if there is a creator, then maybe the idea came from the creator, not the individual. Is that not ego that stepped into that and created that fight? Is that the evil one that wants us to fight and stay divided and create greed?
Exactly.
I think we'd be better off if we didn't have IP laws. I rest my case.
You kind of solved the riddle that's inkled within the Gospel of Matthew. Render upon Caesar what is Caesar's, and render what is God's. The simple fact is render upon yourself your idea, your uniqueness, your independence, your mind to that of God, because without God, or the creator, or the cosmos, or whatever you want to call it, you don't exist, which means your uniqueness doesn't exist, which means your intelligence doesn't exist without that creator. And so render upon yourself to where you come from, which is God, and then render upon Caesar what is Caesar's, which is everything that is material that was made by man. It's like, if Caesar wants his money, Caesar, whose face is on that coin? Jesus says, like, whose face is on that coin? It's an image of Caesar. We'll give it back to him. Who cares? It's not about taxation as theft. It's about the fact that the material is immaterial, and the idea is so metaphysical that it goes beyond the material. The idea starts here, and this noodle was created somehow by the creator. So we're the creature to the creator, and the money or whatever, the law or whatever material aspect is just that. It's just material. So why not just give back what is fake to what is fake and let it be? I mean, if that means you got to suffer a little bit for the time beings, and so be it. Like, out of suffering comes, for every black pill that you swallow, it's also a white pill. It's white and black. So just, that's what people need to actually understand. You're not taking the black pill, people. You're taking the black and the white pill, because every time, for every destruction there's creation. So
yes, that's true. And out of the ashes, something else is formed. I happen to be wearing a Bitcoin shirt, the evolution of money, the shell to salt to cash, card, Bitcoin. And, you think about the idea where Bitcoin came from. We don't know who Satoshi Nakamoto is, but, it was actually a formation of numerous ideas that created Bitcoin. So, some of those original components were developed in the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Mhm.
So those people, should they then attack from an intellectual property perspective? No, that was my idea. Maybe they
Mhm.
didn't file it, or did the patent go? Had what's this arbitrary expiration date on copyright law or patent law? What
Mhm.
what? So an idea has an expiration date, huh?
Mhm.
Yeah, and then when you start to think about where intellectual property and patents and this kind of thing, it hasn't been around for thousands of years. It's only a few hundred
Mm-mm.
years old. Um,
No.
and I think it's in now we're in a global economy. Many things are decentralized. It's We have AI that is really a huge infringement for authors and everyone else. Even podcasters. AI is has got its crawlers out there and it's swallowing up all this
Mhm.
information, this data, and regurgitating it to other people, and the original thought, the original words are not being credited back to the original person who said it or wrote it down. So I think IP laws are near the end of their cycle or usefulness. They are the federal marijuana laws. How's that?
Mhm.
That is where my thinking is going, or is at right now. I'm just about at that crossroad, at that point of the. I've kind of started going down that road at the fork that they've outlived themselves.
Yeah, and it
And so
comes
it's
down
for the
to
better. It's for the
oh, good.
silver lining. It's for the betterment of humankind.
Mhm.
It's
I think
ego and greed that wants the payment.
I think the like the to sum it all up for everything is like if we just step away from the distractions of everything and actually just start thinking and articulating and having conversations like what we're having, and actually if we can actually we can arrive to a better orientation within ourselves to where we can finally rest within ourselves, within our society. We can finally, because we can finally actually kind of pull back and realize, wait a second, this isn't right here. Like we're losing something because we're fighting over this and that. This is my idea, or this is my, or this invention belongs to so and so 400 years ago, or no, but that was 400 years ago, and IP has an expiration date. Yeah, now it's mine because I have the features of it, and I created it now. It's like that's all a distraction. Everything's mood. Why not
Right.
draw in and actually have that cohesive moment with each other so that we can actually step away, breathe, and understand not everything is to be known. Like we need to the understanding, the wisdom of everything is to finally step out of ourselves and realize there's more than just Zachary Kaiser or William here. I mean, it's more than that. So we need to start cooperating. My favorite now is to we need to start competing to cooperate and cooperating to competing
Ah,
rather
nice.
than just competing with one another. You don't want too much cooperation because then you don't have ideas
Right.
like actually formulating, but you don't want to be straight up competing like
Right.
constantly because then you'll have larger backers that into because especially now with I mean money means something. So you'll have larger backers that build larger organizations that are just going to stomp on the little guy anyway. So eventually you're going to see more monopolization of power structures, more greedy models, and you're going to have more control parameters on certain aspects within our society. So we don't want to compete too much because there's always a winner and there's a loser, but we can compete while understanding that we're not always going to win, so we cooperate. So
Yes, absolutely.
mm-hmm.
Good stuff.
So, but we have gone an hour and coming to an hour 15.
Yeah.
And I don't want to bore everybody. So everybody go back, rewatch this, share this with your friends, your family, your social media buddies, and your real friends and your actual family. Like, comment, subscribe. Go follow William. There's his tag right there on X at I am for I am we. And give them a message and you can have a conversation with them. And you can always have a conversation.
Don't contact me and scream and yell and cuss at me. I won't respond.
Oh yeah.
Don't respond to Lloyd.
Yeah. No loitering. No loitering. No loitering. But if you like this, everybody, go ahead, give us a like, give us a subscribe, and if you do subscribe, don't forget to ring that bell, because YouTube shenanigans. They don't like to notify you. So, and come join the chat when we're live. Come join the comments when you're watching afterwards, or if you find us after we're live and just watch the rehash. So join the conversation. And if you'd like to sponsor, there's the links down there. You can sponsor us directly with our PayPal, or come help us build something on Patreon, so maybe we can build a community, have conversations and discussions that are literally for you. Yes. And give you a model to where if you actually become a sponsor, or as I like to say, a shareholder, you'll have the voice and the know-how to throw out what we should talk about. So any last words there, William?
No. Hello, Maria from Brazil. Glad you joined us.
Yes.
No, I don't have anything more to say. I've already pontificated enough today.
We always pontificate, but that's the beauty of it. So, oh man, but and enjoy the rest of your weekend, everybody, and don't miss World Blockchain Roundtable on the Dragon Chain Network as well. So every Thursday. So, but I'm going to say, let's give everybody their Saturday back. And thank you for those who have joined and tuned in, and maybe tuned off, or maybe you tuned in, tuned off, and came back. And for those who did stay on and watched us, thank you. So, but otherwise, let's see what Bitcoin's up to.
Bitcoin, baby.
Hey, yeah, this is Bitcoin. I'm back. The king of the rap shit. I'm back in this Bitcoin, baby. I'm back in this bitch. Flossing fast cars and rolling with my clique. The king of the rap shit, the real OG. Whack-ass rappers got nothing on me. Bought another Lambo, 3 hoes inside it. 10 hoes in line, ready to ride it. It's Bitcoin, bitch. Keep the track bumping. Really on the plug. I got pies in the oven. 80 years old, and your baby mama fond of me. All she wanna do is smoke my broccoli. Private jets from Rome to Ibiza. Lisa, Jenny, Julie, and Maria. Every day I gotta give thanks. I got Bitcoins in the bank. Bitcoin, baby. I'm back in this bitch.
Bitcoin, baby. Oh.
I'm a bad motherfucker.
Bitcoin, baby.
The king of the rap shit. I'm back in this bitch. Axe your grandmother. Verse 2, coming with the gin and the juice. Call me a dragon. Spit flame in the booth. I'm hot, like a thermos full of coffee. So hot, can't get the hose off me. It's true, I got the weed card and shit. I'm smoking like a motherfucking chimney, kid. Bitches love me, my shit's never whack. Tell these motherfuckers Bitcoin's back.
Bitcoin, baby.
I'm a bad motherfucker.
Hot like hot coffee. Oh.
Axe your grandmother.
Surprise, motherfucker.
The king of the rap shit. I'm back in this bitch.
Get your hands in the air. Put your hands